Good afternoon, I'm Tim Johnson and I represent the 38th District in the Kansas House. And this afternoon I've got Lance Neelly, who is representing the 42nd District, and got some questions for him and talk to him. Lance, it's nice to see you.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate you being here. And I am Lance Neelly, State Representative for the 42nd District. My district incorporates Easton, Tonganoxie, Eudora, and McLeod. That with redistricting, I used to come up against Leavenworth and Lansing, but now with the redistricting, I moved further west, and it incorporates McLeod. That happened because they pushed you out of Johnson County, right?
That sure is, and I'm very proud to be here in Leavenworth and Wyandotte County.
They, by doing that, they gave me a third county. So many of the representatives have one county. A lot of the representatives way out west will have multiple counties, but that gave me a third county. I have both Leavenworth County, Douglas County, and now Jefferson County. So it makes it so that when you're dealing with county issues, there's a lot more issues to deal with, a lot more things to be at, incorporates another school system. So it did add some things to it, but very, very happy to be out in that area. Tonganoxie and McLeod, a lot of the people were very close. Families their kids are in McLeod and their kids are in Tonganoxie, so we're a very close-knit area out there. Go ahead, Tim.
Lance, there's a lot of different reasons people look to go run for political offices. Why did you choose to run for the 42nd District originally and now seeking a third term?
The first time I ran, I have 4 children, and they were all in that stage of just about ready to graduate. I wanted my kids to be able to get a home and live in this area, and I consistently watched the taxes go up and up and up, and I watched people voting for those tax increases. I went to probably 20 to 25 different people and asked them to run to get a more conservative voice in the 42nd, and almost all of them said the same thing, which was, why don't you do it? So I did, and now I have stayed in the 42nd and ran for it for the same reason, in trying to keep our taxes down, my kids being able to stick around this area, and now the ability for me to have my grandkids around. I want to be able to watch my grandkids grow up. They, some of them are in the Tonganoxie district, and so I want to be able to see them stay around this area and stay to where I can watch my grandkids grow up now too.
Taxes have been at the forefront in Kansas. I don't think anybody challenges that. But what are the priorities that we will have going into the 2024 session?
Well, there's no doubt that taxes will be number one. Property taxes will be number one. All of us will be attempting to get something accomplished with property taxes. And for that matter, the other taxes. The things that people are paying for are 3 times what they have been in the past. And we need to help as much as we possibly can, and that's another reason why I want to stay up there and help with that. I attempted to put another $50 million worth of property tax relief this last time on the bill, and the governor was adamant about nothing being attached to this bill. There were multiple things that were very, very important that we were attempting to get into this tax bill, and they said no, it must be completely clean, or she's going to veto it and everybody will get nothing. Well, there was some very, very difficult decisions that had to be made, whether or not we attempted to do that. And some of our other representatives had to deal with some serious situations in not being able to attach things to the tax bill. One of the other things that I did was try to get that ATV. It was a property tax, personal property tax on the assessors don't want to go and look for your ATV, your boat, your golf cart, your motorized bicycle. And then when they were reading these things out, they said, or your motorized wheelchair. And I said, I beg your pardon. Did they say motorized wheelchair? And they said, yeah. And I said, so you're telling me that the state of Kansas is taxing motorized wheelchairs? I said, I have a huge problem with this. And they said, well, the assessors don't want to look for these. We want to get rid of those. It's not that much money across the state, so they're really not looking. I said, if it happens one time, it's wrong, and it needs to be stopped. And so that was another one that they would not let us attach to it. But I will guarantee you that I will be helping champion that again. We will not be in the state of Kansas taxing motorized wheelchairs.
So 4 years in, you've had a lot of different bills, a lot of different people to work with. If you could pick out 2 or maybe 3 of your most heartwarming accomplishments or things that you pushed through that made a difference here in Leavenworth and Douglas counties, what would those be?
Okay, first off, I thought you were going to say, who would I choose, my favorite person to work with and everything. I thought that's where you were going with that, in that you and I were our office mates, and so that loaded question I thought was coming up. But obviously, the most important bill that we have been able to accomplish as Leavenworth County representatives, Kansas state representatives from Leavenworth County, was the Veterans Home Bill. And that was the most important one that obviously we all worked on it. It was a very, very important bill. There were multiple bills that you have to deal with. A lot of people don't realize that. You have a finance bill that has to go through appropriations and all those type of things, and so you had multiple bills. So there were some of them were dealing with that, some of them were dealing with the other side of it, and then we were looking at, did we want to use an existing building? Well, we looked at what the new equipment was going to weigh and all these type of things, and electrical, that we needed basically a ground up building to accomplish what we wanted to see for these veterans. Within the conference committee, there were several changes and additions and things that way. And you're aware of some of that. Why don't you tell us a little bit of what happened during the conference committee on the Veterans Bill?
It was amazing that first year, because one of the issues with that bill is it only applied to servicemen who died in the line of duty. Yet we know that with disabilities, severe brain issues, they needed it as much as those who had passed away. So we had some help, and we presented the addition of public safety. That means police, fire, EMS, and with the same provisions. It went through conference committee, it was voted on the House floor, passed the Senate, and we presented to the people of Kansas a true bill to help not just our veterans, but all of our public safety. And I want to thank you for that, because I know you pushed it very hard when it was in the Senate, and I thank you for that.
I've always been a strong proponent for public safety, our first responders. I have a son that's a firefighter. I've been involved in being a first responder, and security and law enforcement, in my life. You have been in law enforcement for many years, and so it was important to you. So we both know how important that is, and so yeah, I'm always happy to champion anything we can do for our first responders.
Let's switch gears. I find this next bill kind of interesting. The whole concepts of cars that drive themselves. And I know there was a bill that came up this last session. We both voted for it, and yet I hear some people think that that wasn't a good choice. Can you just kind of fill us in on that?
Yeah, it's called autonomous vehicle bill, and obviously it's not an issue. If anybody's seeing autonomous vehicles driving around on your highways, you probably should contact your local law enforcement or highway patrol, because they're probably not supposed to be. But within that bill, there was several things that have to happen. The biggest one being that there has to be a plan for any company or anything that way to bring in autonomous vehicles. They have to have a plan, they have to submit it to the highway patrol, and they have to okay it, which would probably incorporate even going to the legislature to make sure that it was okay for them to be able to do this. Autonomous vehicles are not something you can just turn loose. They take tracking or a strip or something along those lines. And what they were mainly looking at was something that was being used in, for example, Missouri at some of the Walmart distribution centers and things that way, in that there was a 2-mile or a 4-mile road in which they had the autonomous vehicle, and they put the strips on the side so that they couldn't go anywhere but that up and down that road. And there are signs around that show that there's an autonomous vehicle on this road, and it's between the shipping and the warehouse. Where they receive it, it goes to the warehouse. And there is no long-term even plan right now in the works to have autonomous vehicles going all over the place on the state of Kansas highways up and down I-70 for that matter. There's a definite advantage to those autonomous vehicles in that Missouri, the first 10 years that they had those doing, they were 100% safety rating. 100%, which means no accidents, nobody got hurt, no damage, all these type of things. And I don't remember the exact number, but in the 10 years prior to that, I want to say it was pretty close to 2,400 or 2,500 different incidents that happened with individual truck drivers being injured, or accidents, or damage to property, or these type of things. Really, the only thing they have to worry about with an autonomous vehicle is maintenance. I mean, there's nobody to feed, there aren't lunches, any of that type of stuff. So.
Well, one interesting point, Lance, that I remember from Topeka was the comparison between the bill to allow these trucks and cars and our trains that are operated by one person in the engine on rails and are completely controlled by computers, and that person just sits there and they operate all the time. And I saw that kind of tie-in.
And unfortunately, we still have derailments, and that can be from maintenance, or it can be from human error. So there are derailments still, and we saw one here in Kansas, and hopefully there wasn't any, from what I read, there wasn't any loss of life or injuries along that matter. So, but that's a huge dangerous thing, and yeah, you're talking about something that's so close to autonomous, and they're everywhere, the trains. That's a very good comparison, and we won't, until we get these things on the highways, which would take tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to put this type of equipment and things on our highways for these autonomous vehicles to even be able to run, unless they come out with new technology, in which case they would end up having to come to us with that about that. But you and I were discussing all the new vehicles and the ability to, you can push a button and it'll back up for you and park it for you already. Vehicles will. Those type of things are coming. Eventually they'll be here. I mean, I'm not sure we're going to be in the Jetsons in you and I's lifetime, but autonomous vehicles are probably going to be coming eventually.
Quick story, Lance, a lot of people don't always get the chance to see some of the little things that we do, but a couple sessions ago we had a bill that we discussed. Why couldn't our kids who have restricted driver's license also drive to and from church? If they can drive to work or to school, why not? These are kids that need to go, and I always appreciated your coming aboard with the bill that I co-sponsored. But I would like to just share with folks the fact that Lance, as a vice chair on the Transportation Committee, carried this bill. And when we came up for the day to have testimony, we had a pastor that testified, and my grandson, who was 14 years old at the time, got up, and Grandpa was popping buttons. I was so glad.
Yeah.
And so we got done, and he gave his nice testimony why he wanted to have a chance to go to church. And so Mr. Neelly here made the decision to ask the young man a question. Who taught you to drive, young man? And he turned around and looked at me. My grandpa. And left the entire committee in tears, laughing so hard the way my grandson looked. But I always remembered, because as a man of faith, you took a step to help our kids. I appreciated that.
Well, and that was one of those bills that we should have had prior to this. I mean, sometimes when we come across a bill and we say, why hasn't this ever come up before? And when you were talking about this was something I said, oh yeah, I'm 1,000% in on this. This needs to happen especially for our rural kids and things that way. Mom and dad, maybe still cutting, but they would still maybe cutting hay or things that way. And you've got kids that take on a lot of duties, especially for their siblings, and the ability for them to turn around and go to church. Why would we ever hinder our kids going to church? That to me is something that should never happen. So, and as far as asking, I want to make sure your grandson he didn't get off of there without somebody asking him a question. So I wanted to make sure that I at least got an attempt to ask him a question. He did a wonderful job. That's stressful, getting up in front of people, especially as a young man, in front of all those people. So he did a great job with it.
I think we need to just go to the elephant in the room, though, to finish up some things. Taxes. What a battle this last year in the Kansas House and the Senate. Vetoes over bills that were literally bipartisan, 100%. What is going to be the answer in 2025 when you go back? How are you going to fix this, or at least what are your suggestions?
Well, I will tell you that, there's been some suggestions made, and, you and I have discussed some of the suggestions, but we've got to go back and figure out some ways to curb property taxes. One of the big things that everybody is talking about is the 4% assessment tax. And I have been hammered by people because I have not completely and utterly committed to that. And I want to explain my skepticism. My skepticism is in that one of the problems that we've had, especially here in Leavenworth County, has been the county and their ability to raise taxes. They're consistently blaming the state for those tax increases, and of course, you know, that's something that just happens in politics. One blames, you know, the state blames the counties and the schools, and the schools and the counties blame the state or whatever. But the 4% assessment tax, it gives the ability, and actually a number one reason to raise the mill levy. If they turn around and, for an example, Leavenworth County's taxes across the board. Now, we know that some people's assessment went up 60%, 80%. You know, I mean, there were horrifying assessments that happened to people. They're horrible. And I know because those people contacted me. I've talked to many of you about these situations. But let's just use for an example that it was 18% all the way across Leavenworth County, you know, an average. If you take that 18% and you knock it all the way down to 4%, you don't think that the county is going to turn around and try and recuperate some of that money that they lose on residential property? It gives them the ability to raise the mill levy, and it gives them an excellent excuse to raise the mill levy. So my thought is that the 4% assessment tax or cap may not completely fix the problem. Now, it would be great if we turned around and said, hey, counties, you can't turn around and raise the mill levy. But that's taking away local rule, and you know, we can't do that. But if we do this and we take this, you know, residential property tax away from them, you know, there's already been discussion of raising taxes and raising the mill levy. So, and that has nothing to do with the 4% assessment tax or cap. So that's you know, that's something that I wanted people to realize, and that was my skepticism on it. I would probably vote for it, and I've said this before, because it gives the people the ability. It would be a constitutional amendment in which the people voted on it. So I would like to see a ballot that had 3-4 pages on it that people got to vote on very important things. And I've been told I'm not supposed to say that because it put you and I out of business and everything if people could vote on it and everything. So, but I think, you know, I would vote for it just because I want to see the people be able to make that decision. But I certainly want the people to think about, hey, this may not solve the problem. It may not solve it. So as far as I'm concerned, there's more work to be done. We've got to come up with some other ways and some other reasons to take care of property tax, and, you know, attack the other taxes and stuff, because inflation is killing everybody. Things are so high. You know, gasoline, I love the deal on Facebook that has a picture of a gas station and it says 4 years ago, you know, $1.23 or $1.83, and then the next, it says 4 years down the road, $4.84. I mean, that tells you, you know, and that's just gasoline. You know, some of the things that are most important to me, like bacon's gone up almost twice as much as it is. I know.
Oh my God.
So, you know, bacon has gotten outrageous, and I know you and I both like bacon, you know. So, but that's affecting everybody. I mean, cereal, all these things, cheese, everything's gone up, and so everybody's having to pay so much more for these things, and then their taxes are higher. So there's so many things, and granted, the food sales tax will go off in January, which will help some. And I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to see that the tax on Social Security will go away. That will help a lot of our seniors. And that's another one of those bills that should have been done a long time ago. It had been done in the states surrounding us, and I don't like it when people make the comment, you know, Kansas always has to be last. I don't want us to always be last. We need to turn around and be first on things, especially of that nature. So, yeah, I'm going to be attacking taxes on every level, and anything that we can possibly do to help the people has to be done.
Well, Lance, it's been a pleasure serving with you, and I will let everyone know no one works harder in Topeka than Lance Neelly has. Long hours, he meets with his people back home. He worked incredible hours when we had the unemployment fraud issues going on. It makes a difference. And with that, I hope that we can find a place and people will consider you for those wonderful values. So let's leave it with one last question. In one sentence, what would you describe your philosophy? The Lance Neelly philosophy, what is that?
I don't know if I can do that in one sentence. My philosophy is a lot longer than that, Tim. But, you know, one of the things that is very important to me and that I say very often is, you may not like what I tell you, but I will tell you the truth. And I've tried to stay with that and stick with that. And I will not lie or try and deceive anybody when it comes to this type of stuff. That is not something I'm going to do. And if it comes to that point where they expect me to do that, then I don't want to do this anymore.
You may not like what I tell you, but I'll tell you the truth. And that's Lance Neelly. And we hope that you will support him in this next election. I'm Tim Johnson, and I thank you so much for letting us talk to you this afternoon.